Hey everybody, this is Michelle with Frolicking Elephants Art and Home Decor. I am getting ready to take you all on my Vintage Market Days Jacksonville adventure. This is the second time I've been a vendor at this particular show. My first time was this past November 2024, where I participated in their holiday market, and it was a really great success. So I am hoping that this spring market meets those numbers, or at least comes really close to those numbers. Everyone knows that Q4 shows tend to do a little bit better than the spring shows, but I will not let that deter me, and I still have some pretty high numbers that I would like to hit. So come along with me and see what it's like to be a vintage vendor at Vintage Market Days in Jacksonville, Florida.
All right, we're getting ready to find our space here at the Clay County Fairgrounds. And it is a very cold, a very windy day. Gosh bless it. I mean, I guess it's better than being too hot, but yeah, it's gonna be fun. This is the beginning of a little 10 by 15 space. And you can see lots of people have already made their way in to set up their spot. So yeah, in just a little bit, a lot more vendors will come in, the smaller vendors of 10 by 10 booths, and load in, and yeah, it's gonna be a little crazy. Marie, what are you doing? My sister is helping me put up my shelving. She's so nice. Thank you, Ari. This is where we are right now. Still a lot to go. Okay, we're a little bit closer. I've got like 3 or 4 more bins of stuff I could put out, and I still am going to put out. I have all my artwork I still need to hang up there. And yeah, but it's slowly but surely coming together. All of the clothing's already up. I have a lot of upcycled and sorry stuff here, and then a lot more vintage clothing there that my sister curated. Okay, it's the end of day 2. I sold those nice Regency Hollywood lamps that I had brought to a lovely couple. I put in some more new pieces, or just moved some stuff around because it was kind of went slow down after like 2 p.m. So I brought some stuff out of one of my overstock bins. So this is how we're looking right now before I leave. Some of the vintage clothing sold down, my sister's, and I sold like one of the skirts and a couple of the robes so far. But yeah, that's where we are, end of day 1. Okay, I'm actually coming to you now at the beginning of day 3 at Vintage Market Days Jacksonville. It's been a really good but exhausting couple of days. I am gonna reset my booth just a little bit because we do have people who come back from day to day, and I just want to make sure that this is what I've had mostly for the end of day 2. I had set it up And my shelves are starting to thin out a lot, which is really good because I don't want to pack all that stuff. But yeah, so I'm just gonna maybe redo some of that, bring things that were down lower, up higher, you know, the fluffing that you do. Our vintage clothing from my sister's side has sold really well. Surprisingly, Kantha throws used to be a very big seller, but not so much this time. To dress up my mannequin a wee bit. But yeah, I'm gonna see if I can zhuzh this up a wee bit more before the last day. For those who don't know about Vintage Market Days, it is a 3-day event that's held in a variety of cities around the United States, and they have about 80 to 125 different vendors who cater to vintage-inspired, vintage and antique home decor, boutique clothing, handmade, and artisan goods. So while I had a few minutes before the doors opened for day 3, I figured I'd walk you through Vintage Market Days Jacksonville so you can get a little bit of an idea of what kind of vendors are there, what most of them sell, and kind of like what the niche goods are. You're going to see a lot of vintage inspired goods like the booth here. There are pockets like where I am where most of the vendors are true vintage or antiques, and they are scattered throughout, but yeah, those cupcakes are really good. My sister buys one every single time we're there. But yeah, there are vintage and true antiques scattered throughout, but most of the people are like this vendor here where they have an assortment of wholesale items, which is like their primary focus, and then they do have some vintage scattered inside. This particular vendor, I think it's Florida Man Antiques. That one, yeah, it has more true vintage and antiques. The booth we're coming up on to the left has a lot of like cowhide rugs and purses. They are a frequent vendor at a lot of the VMDs that I have done. This booth is Vintage Vice, and it is gorgeous. Like that needlepoint is chef's kiss. And I was actually lucky enough to be near them when I did Vintage Market Days Raleigh about 1.5 years ago. And her stuff is just staged so well, and it's just so beautiful and kind of like what I would like to be when I grow up, I guess. But yeah, she just has curated a really nice collection of items. That little needlepoint too, I really liked. And there's some really good stuff still on day 3. So if anyone is interested in going to a VMD in their area, definitely check it out. And don't be afraid to go on Sunday. The crowds are generally a little bit smaller, and you can actually walk through and see everything without feeling rushed or crowded. And also, like most markets, the last day, you may be able to like finagle some better deals, because no one wants to pack that stuff up. Now, this booth entrance I want to highlight because with the 2 bookcases and the ladder on top, it's a really grand entrance and something that I would love to do for myself, but I'm legit only one person at the show, so I can only do so much. But yeah, this is Honey's house, and she also curates a collection of like antiques and vintage. They do make their own potpourri, which is in what these metal tubs hold, and they sell them by the pound. And even she has some like wholesale items scattered. That team seems to be like a recurring theme. It's mostly vintage and just scatter your wholesale goods around for this particular market base, like customer base. Graphic Tee is that booth there, and the owner of that company also runs Vintage Market Days Tampa. And this is my neighbor that's directly across from me. She had all these cute little like stuffed animals and like Raggedy Ann and Andy looking dolls, and on Friday she had pretty much sold out of all of them. Like, that space in her booth was empty and she restocked the next day, but they were really good sellers for her on that day. And then yeah, we come back to my booth right here. I'm definitely one of the more colorful ones. Okay, real talk. There's like 30 to 50 mile an hour gust coming, so I had to take all the stuff off the top of my bookshelves just to be safe. And I put it down on the floor. Not ideal, but you know, this is what happens when you have a bunch of rain coming. See, you can't even see the outside. You can't even see the sky. It's raining that bad. Okay, we have 2 hours left. The large painting with the 3 faces sold to a lovely young couple. And I have some smalls still. I sold a few content throws at this last day, so that's good because I hadn't sold any on the day 1 and 2. My shelves are thinning out, which I'm thankful for. But yeah, 2 hours left.
Okay, so after we broke down from the show, I didn't really film that because 1, it's not very exciting, and 2, after a 3-day market, the last thing you want to do is like set up a tripod to like film yourself packing everything up in the dust, right? So, but we did, between my sister and I, we did manage to load everything out and get, you know, out of there in time for dinner by 7, so in 3 hours, which is pretty good considering how it took like a full day to set it up. That being said, numbers wise, I did come really close to meeting my goal, which was to match my November numbers. And I mean, like, real close. I could have sold maybe 3 or 4 more things and I would have met those numbers. And I have to say that even with the 2 days of rain and the crazy weather not really cooperating with us, and that did, I feel like, kept some people home that might have come out. That being said, yeah, I feel like for a spring show was really successful for me. Obviously, the other vendors talk and everything, and I know that for some people, they might have been frustrated with the numbers that they put up. Some people, I'm sure, did just fine. But yeah, I think one of the things that really helped me is that even though I am in the category of vintage home decor, I do have about 10 to 15% of my inventory, and really it's leaning more like, this shows more like 10% of my inventory was upcycled home decor or upcycled clothing. And even though that was a relatively small percentage of my overall like inventory, like as far as like numbers like of items, it did almost 50% of my sales. So if you are a vintage vendor and you are looking at potentially doing some shows like this, like a vintage market days in your town, I would say that try to find some really good wholesale items that you can sneak in there, because that fit with your theme, fit with your aesthetic, that don't overwhelm or stick out of your inventory, but that kind of like still speak to the same kind of clientele that your vintage items would bring in. Because in the show like that, a market like that, they are still primarily looking for wholesale items. And this is probably the 6th show I've done at Vintage Market Days, and that kind of holds true for all of them so far. Other people's experience may be different, but that's just my opinion. Yeah, but overall, I sold some really, really nice things, like the pair of Hollywood Regency lamps that had those glass flowers with it. Those sold on the first day. My brass lamp that was in the front of my booth with like the Capiz shell lamp shade, that sold on the second day. That was another like higher price item. And then on the third day, I had a really large painting that had like 3 kind of classical vase studies on it, and that sold towards the end of the third day. Those were all bigger ticket items and definitely helped like move my numbers up. So I was really pleased that I brought those items, and I took a chance at that market to try to bring some higher higher priced goods, and in this case it paid off. My next kind of journey I'm going to be on is that now that Vintage Market Days for the Smart show is over, I'm going to bring a lot of some of the inventory that didn't like sell at the show. I'm going to bring it to my new booth out at the De France Antiques on Beale at Fort Walton Beach, Florida. I'm going to stock my new booth with all those goodies, add some new shelving out there, and I'm hoping to be able to do that this coming weekend, because even though as much as I would love to like rest and just chill, sales wait for nobody. So I can't sell this stuff if it's not out in front of customers. So I'm going to do that. Otherwise, if you think that this content was helpful to you and give you some little insight on what being a vintage home decor vendor at Vintage Market Days was, definitely give me a thumbs up, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and just helps get this video out there to help more people who may be interested in kind of like growing their business in that direction. Thank you all for coming along with my adventure, and have a great day.